First episode of Alien Earth is called Neverland. We transition to a ship traveling through space called the Maginot. The USCSS Maginot, a Weyland-Yutani C-class deep space research vessel, approaches Earth after a 65-year expedition to obtain extraterrestrial specimens. Among them are obviously facehuggers. Then we cut to a very similar shot of the first movie where they all wake up from cryosleep. Now they all kind of slowly wake up and start to socialize, and then they have a meal. Right off the bat, this looks very 70s-ish. They did a really good job making this look like it was filmed at the same time that the original Alien was. Like the set and the way it's filmed and the lighting and everything, and even the haircuts. When you look at the actors' haircuts, they all look very 70s. Uncannily, like, is uncannily a word? It looks so similar to that original movie. I am just shocked at how well they made it look like the original movie. It's crazy. There are two guys in kind of the background. One of the guys is teaching the other guy social studies, I think. This is just a means of exposition, or just a tool of exposition. He's telling him what controls what. We find out that there are 5 companies that control Earth and have colonized the solar system, including the recently founded Prodigy Corporation. And the Prodigy Corporation is led by a guy named Boy Cavalier. First name Boy, last name Cavalier. People have interesting names in this show. Yutani has Mars and Saturn, and a company called Dynamic has the moon. It's kind of like that Fight Club line where Tyler Durden says that when space exploration, the expanse happens, when they finally expand out to other planets, it'll be the corporations that take over everything.
When deep space exploration ramps up, it'll be the corporations that name everything. The IBM Stellar Sphere, the Microsoft Galaxy, Planet Starbucks.
Oh, and this guy named Mr. Tang is being super creepy. Might be foreshadowing for later. I don't know. We'll see. In this conversation, we also find out that one of them is a cyborg. His name is Morrow. This is extremely reminiscent of the first movie. They all get woken up because of some kind of error, and it's they're months away from Earth. So now they're like, oh, well, we don't want to stay awake. We want to go back into cryo. I think the same thing happens in Alien Covenant. The captain tells them that the comms are down and some other systems, files are corrupted, and some other systems are shutting down, and they want to figure out what the problem is. Morrow, the cyborg, is very dedicated to the mission. Very similar to Bishop from the first movie. Bishop's mission in the first movie was to get the specimen to Earth regardless of the crew's lives, right? This takes place 2 years before that, but this seems to be kind of a more successful mission than that one because it did actually get to Earth, so very curious. I guess they figure it out because then they show them going back into cryo. Maybe some people stayed awake because it also shows a couple characters staying awake and not going back into cryo. Oh, and they have a cat. It's Jonesy. Remember Jonesy? I remember Jonesy. Jonesy's the only survivor of that first mission. The only thing that didn't get killed by a xenomorph in that first movie. I know Ripley didn't, but she died later, so that makes Jonesy the sole survivor. So after they go back into cryo, we cut to Prodigy Research Island, also known as Neverland. There's a couple Peter Pan themes in this show. Timothy Olyphant is talking to a girl about a scorpion, and the girl definitely looks terminally ill. He's saying some parable about scorpions that's very reminiscent of Aesop's fables. I'm scared and I don't know why. So this girl's name is Macy, and she is going to be the first human to transfer into a synthetic body. So transfer her consciousness into a synthetic body, which makes sense because if she's terminally ill, then the way to save her would be to transfer her mind into like a robot or a synthetic. We've seen this kind of thing before in sci-fi films and video games and stuff, but this is like the first time it's happened in this world. As far as we know, we haven't seen, like in the Alien franchise, we've only seen synthetics and humans. We haven't really seen like any cyborgs that I know of. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm pretty sure we haven't seen any until now, any like synthetics or people like this who have transferred consciousness. So right before she transfers in, we meet this guy, Boy Cavalier, who's played by this actor, Samuel Blenkin. I've seen him a lot in things. He's been in tons of stuff, but I saw him in Mickey 17 and in Atlanta. Oh, you know what? He was also in Black Mirror. Really good actor. He shows up and he's supposed to be a trillionaire because this is the future and you can have billionaires. It's got to go to a trillion, of course. I love his drip, man. This guy just, every time I see him, he's wearing something really cool and I'm super jealous. Probably going to be a weekly thing for me where I just look at what he's wearing and I'm like, I want that. Anyway, Maisie changes her name to Wendy to fit the Peter Pan theme, of course. And she transfers into the synthetic, and now she is a robot, synthetic person. And now she can kind of live on as a robot and not have a terminal illness. They never say what her terminal illness is unless they did and I just didn't hear it. I assume cancer because of the missing hair, but could be anything. So they bring more terminally ill kids, or I assume terminally ill kids, to the island, Neverland. If this is Neverland, I really hope that Boy Cavalier is not Michael Jackson. So they make Wendy to be kind of a big sister to these other kids. She's sort of like the leader of the pack. And I'm not really sure what their goal is here other than make sure that this is a thing that can work long term so that they can, I assume sell it in some way. Like, I'm not really sure what their goal is here. So we have a really cool, like, one take, or like it's not really one take, but it's made to look like a one take, where all the kids are transitioning into their new bodies. Very stylized, very Noah Hawley. I wasn't even gonna watch this show when I heard it was coming out, and then I heard Noah Hawley was gonna be writing every episode. My eyebrows kind of perked up, and I was like, my interest is piqued. I didn't watch Fargo, but I did watch Legion, and Legion is a one-of-a-kind. That is a very unique TV show. Not surprised that this is a hit already. We cut back to the Maginot, and Morrow is in that cool little room with all the lights from the first Alien movie. I know it's not the exact same room, but it's a room that's similar. He's talking to the corporation, which I assume is Weyland, and telling him, like, oh, we're on course, and everybody's dead. Don't worry, on our way. One of the crew members is in the background banging on the door. She's not really banging on the door, though. She's just, like, kind of lightly tapping on the door, like, hey, I'm about to get eaten. Sorry, they really should have directed her to like slam the door, but maybe the glass was very flimsy or something on set. I don't know. Anyway, he seals the door even more and kicks her out in his legs. And he goes, sorry, lady, you're gonna die. And Xenomorph gets her and kills her. But Murrow hides in a secret compartment before the Xenomorph can get him. So he's not fully like Bishop. Are we going to see Bishop? Did all Weyland synthetics look like Bishop? I guess not, because none of these look like him. That's a good thing, I think. We cut back to Wendy, and Wendy is telling her stuffed animals about her brother. He's a medic and corporate soldier, whatever that means. This is kind of a weird thing they do in this show, where she watches surveillance footage of him, which I'm not really sure how she has access to that. They don't explain how she does. If they do, correct me in the comments. The people that are watching over her are watching her watch him. So it's just a bunch of people watching each other. Then we cut to these corporate soldiers out on a rooftop, and it looks like they have a gym. And that's when the ship crashes. It crashes in New Siam, which I know this is a TV show, but like if something got anywhere near the Earth, we would know. Like we would know ahead of time if something's on a collision course to Earth. We would definitely know about that. So that's a little ridiculous, especially in the future, but whatever. So it crashes into a hotel, and Hermit, because that's his name, is one of the first responders on the scene, him and his team. Yeah, it looks like it crashed right into a hotel. So they go aboard the Maginot. I swear these corridors look exactly like they do in the old movie. I mean, it's kind of like they used the old set from the old movie, or they replicated it perfectly. I know I say that a lot, but it's crazy to me. Then we cut back to Morrow, the cyborg guy, and he tells Mother that he's moving to the armory until reinforcements arrive. Now he's talking to Mother, and if you don't follow the franchise, that means he's talking to the ship, or the ship's computer. Then we cut back to Wendy, and she sees the whole crash on the news, and she sees that her brother is there. Again, I don't know how they have access to like every single camera in every single place, or maybe because they're synthetic, or maybe because they're at the island. Maybe this billionaire guy, trillionaire guy, maybe he has access to every camera. I don't know. This surveillance system doesn't make any sense to me, but it is the future. It's a sci-fi, so we'll let it go. Here's the thing. The ship is owned by Weyland-Yutani, but it landed in a region that's owned by Prodigy. So Boy Cavalier, that's such a weird name. Who names their kid Boy? You're just Boy. Boy. This is where it gets kind of weird, because the Wendy wants to go investigate the ship and make sure her brother's okay, and they just let her go because she's a synthetic. That's kind of strange, right? Why would you send a bunch of kids there? Because the kids are going to go with her. Like, it's not just Wendy. A bunch of the kids are going to go, and Kirsch is Timothy Olyphante's character is going to go supervise them. But I'm like, aren't they all children? How is this a good plan? This trillionaire character seems pretty whimsical, so he goes along with it. I assume he just needs people there to like, he can like see through their eyes, I guess. Like he sees what they see, because they're synthetics, so I guess it's a way for him to like see what's in there. Still a pretty reckless plan, but we're going with it. I am glad that at least this bald guy over here at least does question that decision, because it is kind of weird. And he mentions that losing a single unit would be devastating. I assume he means financially. Oh yeah, and then she makes a sword out of her paper cutter, or like stationary cutter thing. Who among us hasn't wanted to do that? But I just thought it was strange. And then it like magnetizes to her back like a ninja. And then she also takes one of her stuffed animals, the walrus, because you can't leave home without your favorite stuffed animal. What are those things called? Habubus, habuchus, whatever the fuck. Never leave home without that. Anyway, she rounds up the rest of the Lost Boys, and they head over to the ship. Then we cut back to the ship, and we see two soldiers who come across Morrow, and Morrow ties them up to like a pole. He just kind of leaves them there. Oh, and he asks one of them where Cavalier is, and he goes, the trillionaire? How the fuck should I know? Then we cut to Hermit, and he's with two other people. They're looking at the cryo chambers, and they see that, you know, obviously xenomorphs have popped out of the cryo chambers, which we've seen a million times in other Alien movies. I kind of like that they didn't show us everything that happened on the ship, because we've already seen that before like 1,000 times in all the other Alien movies. So it's totally fine if we don't see it. They could still do like a flashback episode. Unless there's information we don't have. We actually don't really need a whole lot of that because we know how the xenomorph works, you know. At least I definitely have, because I just recently binged all the Alien movies. Oh yeah, then we get introduced to one of the specimens, and it's this really creepy bug looking thing that like crawls on your face and like sucks all the blood out of your body, and it turns into this big like giant blood clot thing. And I don't know what it does with the blood, but it's creepy, man. Then we cut back to the Lost Boys on the ship, and then Kirsch, played by Timothy Olyphant, starts to pontificate about humanity and how they used to be food. And the only reason that they're not food is because they built tools in order for them to tell themselves that they're not food, right? That we're at the top of the food chain because we decided we are. You know, we built tools to make sure that we are always at the top of the food chain so that nothing is coming to eat us. And he says that that will only work for so long. Eventually something will come and eat you, which in this case he is right, because the xenomorph is like definitely way higher on the food chain than us humans. This pontification he goes off on kind of reminds me of the John Hamm cold opens from Legion, if you've seen Legion, where they talk about man and stuff, and it ties in with the themes of the episode. If you haven't seen Legion, you should definitely go watch Legion. Oh, and he says, your brother's eventually gonna die, which is a super nice thing to say to a child. And she replies with, nah, I'm gonna save him. And then the episode ends. Episode 2 of Alien Earth is called Mr. October. We open up on Hermit, and he's walking down a corridor that looks exactly like the corridors from the first movie. We cut back to Neverland, where a character named Dame Sylvia is talking to Boy Cavalier, who's looking fly as hell as always. And we kind of get their motivations in this scene. And Dame says that they need to make the kids' quality of life better so that they can fully sustain like whatever they're trying to do with these synthetics, which I assume it's like because they said something about their brains developing normally, but I wonder like where that stops. Like, does it stop at a certain age? Because obviously their body can't develop anymore because it's synthetic. But their brains, they said that their brains want to develop like age like a normal human being. But where does that stop, you know? Then Cavalier talks about how his main motivation is to find someone smarter than him and to have a conversation with a being that's smarter than him. Pretty pretentious thing to say, but that's his motivation, and we'll go with it. Then we cut back to the Lost Boys, and Wendy tells one of the other crew members about her brother and how it's a big secret. She tells him not to say anything, but kids are bad at keeping secrets. Then we cut back to Hermit and the other corporate soldiers. They're in like a broken down stairwell, and they're trying to like jump through it. They're just shouting at him like, shut up and dance, man. And Xenomorph pops up and tries to kill him. Then we get kind of a flashback where we find out that it looks like Wendy can sort of control machines just by touching them, which is interesting. I wonder where they're going with that. So then Kirsch and the Lost Boys land, and they head into the hotel. So then we get a scene where Yutani calls Cavalier and says, hey, that's my ship, don't touch my ship. And he's like, hey, it landed on my lawn, so I'm going to touch it. So Kirsch and the Lost Boys discover the ship and come across some creepy aliens. The first one they come across is this weird, like, cocoon-looking thing, and we're not really sure what it does yet. But the next one is far more terrifying. Then they come across the cat, who kind of reminds me of Jonesy from the first Alien, but I hope this isn't Jonesy, because good lord. I don't think I could show this on YouTube, but basically the cat has this big eyeball, and the eyeball jumps out of the cat, and it looked like it was controlling the cat like a zombie. And it jumps out of the cat when they enter the room, and it tries to do the same thing to them to like kind of replace one of their eyes so it can control it. They capture it under like a pot, like a bug, like you would a giant bug. So we got more Hermit running from the Xenomorph, and he comes across this weird 1600s party that people are having in the hotel, and they don't even know that like a ship crashed into it. Anyway, the Xenomorph shows up and fucks them all up, but it's okay because Hermit survives. Then Moreau shows up and stuns Hermit and also stuns the Xenomorph and like sprays this weird chemical on him that creates like a sack and just like hauls him out of there. Then we cut back to Kirsch and the Lost Boys, and they tell him about the weird eye creature, and he plugs a thing into his arm and does some research on it. Must be cool to be an android. So some soldiers find Moreau, and they try to arrest him, and the Xenomorph breaks out and kills them all, but he does not kill Moreau. Morrow? Is it Morrow or Moreau? It's one of those. Kirsch accesses some of the security cam footage, and he finds the room with the eggs, that's in every Alien movie. I think he tells Smee to go there. Smee, Wendy. Everybody in this show either has a name from a YA novel or a Peter Pan fanfic. Wendy finally finds her brother, but of course he doesn't know it's her because he thinks she's dead, because that's what they told him. And obviously he doesn't recognize her because she's in a different body. She doesn't really tell him at first, but slightly spills the beans anyway, though, because he's bad at keeping secrets. He asks her some questions to make sure she's really his sister, and then they hug it out. The three of them find the room with the eggs, and the Xenomorph shows up and attacks Hermit. Wendy, of course, goes after them, and the episode ends. So yeah, that's Alien Earth so far. Yeah, I'm not disappointed. The overall style and direction is definitely weird and different, and I wouldn't expect anything less from a Noah Hawley TV show. But I'm definitely interested to see where they're going with the whole Peter Pan, Lost Boys, like synthetics, human consciousness going over to the synthetics. I'm very interested in the Lost Boys and see what they do with them. I'm also very interested to see what the other new threats are, like that eyeball thing. Like, that's pretty interesting. I'm definitely interested to see what the other specimens are, because we have the xenomorph, but he's not the only boogeyman. You know, the xenomorph isn't the only interesting threat that they have here. They definitely have potential for escalating circumstances because we have limited information on all these specimens. So that's going to make for some really interesting TV, I think. Comment below what you guys think is going to happen next, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.